There you go. Thanks. So I believe, if I recall correctly, we were on 585 is what I want to say. Let's see if I got it right. Is it 585?
Right at the start.
Yay, 585, I got it. I have a photographic memory. It's one of those gifts you have as a
I don't know
rabbi.
how you remember all the names of people that you do. It's great. I don't know how you do that. You must have a trick.
Well, Kevin, it's pretty easy, actually. No, oh. No, for those of you in the intro class, there were, if you came to the class the other night on the Arab-Israeli conflict that I taught, I got a nice compliment afterwards. This who was at the class, they told me that they had a debate on the way home. They said, one of them was saying, wow, I can't believe the rabbi remembered all those dates and names and all those things. And he said, the other person said, yeah, back of the TV screen timeline with all the notes, and that's how he remembers all of it. It's like, then they're like, no. I was like, nope, all in my brain. I have this weird brain. It comes in handy.
It's a good rabbi brain.
It's a good rabbi brain. Exactly. Terrible science brain, but good rabbi brain. All right. So, start off with our blessing for study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kisham mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So, we have here, we'll start off right there at the beginning. Now, with verse 1, Leviticus 1:1. So Leviticus, let me just give a little preface to Leviticus. Leviticus is a really honest when I was starting in rabbinical school. Every time we get to Leviticus, I was like, no, how do I write about this? Like, it's so irrelevant today. There's all these things about the temple and sacrifices and the priesthood and things that we don't do today. And and this isn't part of who we are. And also there's we're here an LGBT friendly synagogue, and there's stuff in the book of Leviticus about sexual morality laws, some of which I agree with, and other parts I make me uncomfortable and I disagree with it. And this kind of going back to what I was saying before class here of tossing out a baby with bathwater, that there are some people who say there's a verse in Leviticus 18 that makes me super uncomfortable. It's polemic against homosexuality, and so I hate the Torah and I hate all this because I hate that verse. And it's like, well, I appreciate that shouldn't throw out the whole Torah when there's other parts of the Torah that we can read very differently. But and also we can say, well, why is this in here? Is there something that we can understand about how our ancestors understood things? Now, so I used to really dread Leviticus. And then, and there was even a debate once among Reform rabbis, because if you were in my before services today, you heard me talk about how in Reform Judaism, some of the things that Reform Jews theologically rejected were the idea of sacrifices, of going back to that, of rebuilding the temple, of Messiah coming one day, stuff like this. And a lot of Leviticus, priesthood and the temple and sacrifices. And there's a debate among early Reform rabbis of this, like, should we just kind of cut that out of the Reform Torah and after Exodus skip over to Numbers, or maybe we'll include parts of Leviticus we like, but not other parts. And that was an actual debate. But I'm glad they didn't do that, because one, that would, then when we do Torah, it would be like in August or whatever, but also, so there's God didn't give an Orthodox Torah, conservative Torah, Reformed Torah. God gave a Jewish Torah, and we have to confront parts that even make us uncomfortable. But also with Leviticus, you have here, somebody said to me once, this kind of changed my perspective on it, this is the most important book in the Torah. Most important book in the Torah. How's it the most important book of the Torah? Is all these rules and sacrifice stuff. And he said, because this is about how to get close with God. And also it gives you framework and order. And we don't cool, Genesis has great stories. Yes, it's easier for me to write a sermon on Genesis. It's got great stories and things we can learn. It's way more fun for me to teach kids about Noah's Ark than it is about the sin offering and the guilt offering, etc., etc. So, but he said, but without Leviticus, it was actually a custodian who told me this at a synagogue I was singing at as a rabbinical student. Changed my mind. Without Leviticus, you don't have rules, have the values that make Judaism a religion and for us to follow. So, interesting perspective. So we start off, and like I mentioned in services, when you look here, you see Vayikra El Moshe, this tiny, tiny little aleph at the end of Vayikra. And the reason for this is, that tiny aleph, Moses apparently was a bit embarrassed because he was such a humble guy that he was being called as a prophet here, and God was calling out to him. And so that is there to kind of diminish that, hey, I got this call. And when Moses was writing the Torah, and to show a bit of humility for Moses. Now, some people might say, well, that only draws more attention to it, but sorry. But it says here, can we get somebody to read the very first verse of Leviticus? Great. Go ahead and read it in English too. That's fine.
The Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, "Speak to the Israelite people and say to them."
Okay. So what's bothering Rashi here? Because again, it's we often, when God is addressing Moses, does it say Vayikra? What does it usually say? Vayomer El Moshe, which means, and God spoke to Moses. What's the difference between God calling out to Moses versus God speaking to Moses? Pardon? So maybe there's something about right now I'm speaking to Brett, and we're just talking. But if I was like, Brett, all that'd be, and calling out to him, that would be different. I wouldn't call our conversation right now, I'm calling out Brett or whatever. So we have here a little bit of a difference of how Moses is being spoken to by God. And Rashi is curious about this. And so what Rashi says is every time God communicated to Moses, whether it was represented by expression and he spoke, Vayidaber, like Vayidaber el Moshe, and he said, Vayomer el Moshe lemor, and he commanded, Vayetzev. It was always preceded by God calling Moses by name. An expression of love, an expression that the ministering angels use, as it says, and one would call to the other. That comes from Isaiah chapter 6, verse 3. So what's Rashi saying here? about why it says Vayikra instead of Vayidaber or Vayomer. Yeah, exactly. Kind of like what I was talking about today of the Korban being a sacrifice, but coming from the same root as Karov, to draw near to. This is showing that God, and perhaps this is why Moses wants it to be more humble, as written here, is because, when it says Vayomer Adonai, or Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, or Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe, it's not that profound. God spoke to Moses. God said something to Moses. But here, it's not just that Moses is getting a call. It's that God is calling out to Moses out of love and feeling close to Moses. So we can also think about Moses' response. So when else did Moses get a call?
Was that his father-in-law's when God told him?
So before that, before Parsha Yitro, when does Moses become a prophet, basically? Burning bush, exactly. So the burning bush. God calls out to Moses the burning bush. And Moses says, which is what Abraham says, and I believe it's Samuel says later, which he doesn't say. How would you say, here I am? If somebody called me on the phone and I'm living in Israel and they say, I'm in Israel and they say, Echo ata, where are you? And I'm at the meeting point they told me to meet, I'd say, well, I'm here. But how would I say that in Hebrew? I'd say, Ani po. That means I'm here. Ani po. But is that how they respond? No, they use a different term. What do they say? Hineni. And hineni means literally behold, like hine matovu manayim, means behold how good it is. And so hineni, even though we translate it as here I am, what if you were to literally translate it, it would say like, behold, I am here. Like, behold me. And so Moses is also not just being casual of, I'm here. Moses is telling God, is Moses and others who have special connections to God, again, Samuel, Abraham, people like that, are using a term of endearment and recognizing the uniqueness of this relationship. So, I don't know, let's think about that. You have terms of endearment for someone. I might say, hi, friend, or something like this. Now, actually, sorry I pick on you, and if I make you uncomfortable in this moment, I'm not trying to. But if I came up to you, or maybe I am, if I came up to you, I was like, hey, sweetheart, how would that make you feel?
Weird.
Weird, okay? That would be a weird thing for me to say. Why?
Because, I mean, I don't know. I'm not your, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's like what you call your wife.
Exactly. It would either be one of two things. Like, it's either something kind of sexist, like if I'm walking up to every woman and being like, hey, sweetheart, or whatever, kind of comes across sexist. Or I do call my wife sweetheart, which would anybody think twice about if if my wife was like, hi, sweetheart, would anybody think twice about that? No, that's like a totally normal, acceptable thing to do. I'm saying hey, sweetheart, you all might be like, why is he calling, like, what? And that would be weird. And that would also, and my wife would not like that, I can tell you that, but also that would be diminishing, this term of affection for my wife. It'd be meaningless if that's just what, I called her. Or if I walked up to my wife and I was like, hey, bro. Maybe I'd say that to a friend or something, like, hey, bro, what's up? Or, hey, pal. If I went up to my wife and was like, sup, bud? She'd be like, what? We have different terms for different people. But also, I wouldn't walk into, I have, sometimes with this job, with this position, I have meetings with people like the governor or whatever. I would never walk into a meeting with the governor and say, hey, bro, sup, bud? Like, no, I wouldn't do that. It's not my relationship with him. That would be completely inappropriate. But maybe if I saw my really good friend from college, we would address each other like that. Hey, my friend, what's good? So we see that we address different people based off of what they mean to us and what our relationship is with them. And so that is what we see here with Moses and God. And we see here that Moses, again, writes the Aleph a little bit smaller out of a bit of embarrassment that he has this special relationship with God that the rest of us don't have. But that God is addressing Moses in a certain way. And what Rashi says here is that this is like how according to Isaiah, how the angels would address each other. And this is how God's relationship with Moses. And, as a result, too, Moses is the only person to know God's true name and see God face to face and stuff. Yeah.
So, but for all of Israel, we're in a marital relationship with God. So there's a kind of intimacy. Or
Yeah.
Something analogous to a marital.
I mean, we learned that.
Like in some of the Psalms.
Yeah. I mean, that we have this love with God and stuff. But I'm not trying to romanticize anything between God and Moses. But at the same time, yeah, like I feel close with every person in this room, actually. Everybody in this room I like. Everybody in this room is our community. And I feel close with everybody here. At the same time, and hopefully you like me and stuff in return. But, and we have a relationship. And at the same time, my relationship with my wife is going to be different. I was talking yesterday with a congregant. A new congregant was learning their backstory, and they told me which rabbi married them. Not a rabbi in Utah and stuff. And they said this rabbi's name, and I went, oh. And they went, yeah. I was like, oh. And they said, yep. And I was like, oh. And what it was because I knew who that rabbi was. This was a rabbi who would, people would say about this rabbi, he was brilliant. He's a brilliant guy, by the way. He's written books. And I've actually met him, very charismatic, very kind. I met everything. But this rabbi was known for basically having scandals to cover up his other scandals. It was just one scandal after another with this guy, and sleeping with a lot of congregants and a lot of things like this. And so, yes, I feel close to my whole congregation. I can say, though, that I'm not that close. I have never done anything like that with a congregant, nor would I, or anything. but also that rabbi, as a result, diminished his relationships. Obviously, diminished his relationship with his own wife, but also by having. This was not just one affair. This was like, I shouldn't say this, but I'm like, show of hands who did not sleep with this rabbi in this congregation. Like, it was insane. You know, and so, like, just how much promiscuity was going on there. But some of those people who had an affair with the rabbi, they didn't realize that that the rabbi was having affairs with lots of people. And so they thought they had this special connection with the rabbi. And wow, we have this connection. We're in love. We have all these things. And didn't realize there's 20 other women who have that same connection in this congregation with you. And so this with him. So the thing is like what we see going back to God and Moses and everything here is, yes, we all have a close relationship with God as people of Israel. And yet, Moses had something that was unique and different. And it needed to be that way too, for God and for the people of Israel. Because if not, you would see what happened in that other congregation there, where it created chaos and infighting and jealousy and things like this and scandals. So we see holy here in the way that God addresses Moses. So I don't know. So something to think about. I tell people when we look at the many different names of God, as we do in our intro class, when we look at those 49 different names of God, kind of like, again, my wife might call me sweetheart, my kids call me Abba, my niece calls me Uncle Sam, my parents call me Sammy sometimes, my friends call me Sam, my congregants will sometimes call me Spectre. At the bank, they call me Mr. Spectre, etc., etc. My legal document says Samuel. These are all referring to the same person, but different relationships that people have with me. And so maybe notice over the next week, how do certain people address you? Whether they're very important people in your life, whether it's a romantic partner, a family member, or again, at the bank, or a friend, or something like this. How do people address you, and how do you address folks? That's what Rashi's getting at here, is that there's something unique in the word Vayikra. Let's go to verse 10, page 589. Somebody read for me, verse 10. Got it. All right. But I'm sorry. Let me just see. Of his goats, he shall make his offering a male without blemish. So a blemish, by the way, is a defect or something. Why do we not offer with a blemish? This is supposed to be something like, think about the story of Cain and Abel, how Cain and Abel both brought fruit offerings to God. Abel brings first choice fruits, like the very first fruits that were sprouted and that were beautiful and the nicest ones. And Cain just kind of threw whatever together, kind of like I'm not going to eat that. That apple has a wormhole. I'm going to eat that one. I'm going to give that one to God. Again, if you regularly, I'll get neighbors who are like, "Hey, I have a billion apricots on my tree, so I picked some apricots and I'm giving them out to neighbors. Here's a little basket of 20 apricots. Nice thing to do. Maybe you've had a neighbor or somebody like that do that for you before you've done that. Now, how would you feel, though, if your neighbor came up to you and said, "Hey, I have a tree with a billion apricots on it. So here are the rotten ones, or the ones that have wormholes in it, or a bird pecked at and stuff that obviously I'm not going to eat." You're like, "You're giving me your garbage." Like, what the? So similarly, a blemish, if you have a bull that you can't breed or you can't sell or isn't quality, or it's got a gash on it or something, come on. You want to give God something of high quality. But what bothers Rashi here is that we're in the beginning of a new paragraph. Look at this, like Rashi gets so particular on stuff like, did you learn in grammar school growing up that you're not supposed to begin a paragraph with the word "and," or a sentence rather with the word "and"? You don't begin a sentence with the word "and." Well, Rashi kind of believes that too. I've heard now saying other things, but we have the beginning of a new sentence of a new paragraph here, and Rashi says the paragraph begins with the Hebrew letter Vav, meaning "and is a continuation of the previous subject. Why is the paragraph broken up? Like, why? Like, these are the things that I could not imagine living with Rashi. Like, we are always asking what's bothering Rashi. I think a better question is like, what doesn't bother Rashi? Like, he's hung up on why, because keep in mind, we see like periods and stuff like that here. Those are things that the rabbis and other folks added. Rashi's like, why is this broken up here? I don't know. How about let's maybe go back one verse. Can somebody read verse 9? All right, I'll do it. Its entrails and legs shall be washed with water, and the priest shall turn the whole into smoke on the altar, a burnt offering, a gift pleasing odor to the Lord. Now, look at this previous paragraph. Where does this paragraph start? The previous paragraph. Really, before that, I think actually, verse 3 is where God starts giving this instruction. Yeah. Or verse 2. 2 or 3, depending on how you look at it. So, why do you think this is broken up here?
Sort of like emphasizing.
Okay, it might be this. Sometimes we stop things for an emphasis. Something that I'm really bad at doing in writing. I love to write. I think I'm a good writer, but something that I struggle with is I often will write run-on sentences where I'm like, I just wrote, like I could have broken that into 4 sentences, and that one sentence, I just wrote one sentence that's that long. And again, if we don't have grammar in here, when the Torah is written, this is all just one continuous thing. Now, my wife tells me, Sam, can you go to the store, get eggs, milk, and bread? It's no problem. Okay. I can get eggs, milk, bread. Then she starts telling me, all right, can you go to the store and get eggs, milk, bread, flour, frosted mini wheats, bananas, apples, oranges, blueberries, strawberries, grapes, cheese slices, cheese sticks, cheese, butter, vegan butter for when we have meat meals. Also, we need yogurt and stuff like that. I'd be like, I'm not going to remember all that, right? So what do we do here? If you organize it and say, all right, can you get the following fruits? Oranges, got it. Okay, can you get the following dairy products? Can you get cheese slices, milk, and butter? Got it. And she breaks it up like that, then it might be easier for me to remember. Or if she writes it down like that, then I'm not looking at this super long list. In the dairy section, let me look at that. That's what Rashi says is going on here, is that this is broken up to give Moses a second to pause so that he can think about all of these instructions that God has given to him here. And because we have a ton of instructions. And so we have to think about, we have to break that stuff up. And we have to break that stuff up sometimes. Or when we are sharing information with others. One of the challenges and great things of the times that we're living in is on my phone. This thing, it fits in my pocket right here, size of my hand. I can look up any information in the entire world that's ever been known. I have access to that. So how access to news going on around the world, seeing like updates on what's going on with this war in Iran. We knew back on like February 28th, Iran, which is on the opposite side of the world, we knew that Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, was killed. Amen. Ali Khamenei was killed. We found that out that same day. 200 years ago, how long would it have taken for us to know that?
3 to 4 months.
Yeah. We still wouldn't know. Here we are like 4 weeks later, and we'd have no idea. We'd still be like, who's the head of Iran? Ali Khamenei. Then he died? When did he die? 4 months ago. How? We did what? Like, it would be a whole thing. But we get that information rapid speed. But we also get tons of other information. A million different things. Like the other day, I found out, this was the information I got, that Ali Larijani, the guy who had been leading Iran since Ali Khamenei was killed, got killed. I heard that that Afro Man was involved in a lawsuit over lemon pound cake, and that, you might not know what I'm talking about. That's the funniest thing on earth.
He won.
Yeah, he won.
The
And
cops were suing him.
yeah, he won. And then I found out that our local hometown celebrity, who was going to be the Bachelorette, got canceled from that, and Cesar Chavez, the great hero of farm workers, had a bunch of allegations come out against him, and that basically Cesar Chavez Day, which is a week and a half from now, has been completely canceled, in that every city is taking down their Cesar Chavez Boulevard signs right now. And like, I found all this out in like one day. And it's like, we have the ability to get information from all over the place. How do we keep it straight? This is what Rashi is telling us the point of this new paragraph is to let us know it's a continuation, but at the same time, taking a moment to pause so that we don't get overwhelmed and that Moses doesn't get overwhelmed here. There you go. All right, with that, I have to go relieve my nanny, but hopefully some good things to think about for this week. Well, thank Rashi. I just read what he wrote, so I didn't do anything. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you. Shabbat Shalom.